Hey guys, it's me, Mike Rowe. I just talked to Kara on her podcast, Really Famous, and I don't want to overstate it, but I think we may have solved the problems of the world. I mean, this woman took me deep, and I wound up revealing things about myself I didn't even know. So my career is certainly going to take a big turn after this airs, and she promised me a coffee mug as well. Kara, show him the mug. Show him the mug. All that's coming at you when Kara and I sit down to talk for about 100 hours.
You know Mike Rowe, but do you really know him? I'm Kara. I used to be a therapist. So when I talk to somebody, I really like to talk to them. Let's go. These are from your Facebook fans. The biggest question was, are you going to run for president in 2024? That was like the big question.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. No, I'm not going to run. Look, I could barely run for another season of Dirty Jobs. What am I going to do in DC other than piss off half the country? You know? I mean, look, modesty aside, it's very flattering, but I've seen after 12 years with the foundation, I can move the needle in a more satisfying way, to be selfish about it. I just don't think the political environment today is ready for the likes of me. It's got to go splat first.
Okay, so the second most popular question is about your personal life. They want to know, are you married? Will you ever get married? What do you think about marriage?
I'm a huge fan of the institution. The problem for me was my grandparents and my parents both set the bar so high that I think, in hindsight, I may have been a little intimidated by it. But by the time I met the woman I'm with now, she was in no great rush, and I was very busy, and we were both a little older at that point. And so in some ways, I think the decision kind of got made for me. The kid decision did. And I don't really mean that. I made the decision myself. I just didn't do it consciously. But yeah, big fan of the institution. I've never been married, and I honestly don't know if I ever will.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean I'm not a big fan of the institution.
Okay, got it. Anne would like to know if
I'm a big fan of prisons too, by the way, and I have no intention to go into one of those.
Oh, good. So Anne wants to know if you could sit down and have a beer with anyone in the world, dead or alive, I'm going to add, who would it be?
Dead or alive? Well, in no particular order. Abraham Lincoln, Jesus Christ, or Jesus of Nazareth, I suppose, at the time. I don't know why I'm thinking about three, but
yeah, you can go with three.
Jesus, Lincoln, and I think, gosh, there's so many. I should have a better pat answer for this because all I do is write about people on my podcast.
There are too many is probably the problem.
That is the problem. It's the dirty jobs. You do 300 of them. Mike, what's your favorite dirty job? I'm like, I just spin the wheel and talk about wherever it lands.
By the way, that was one of the big questions too. But like, that's not I know how, because this is what I do. I know I can't ask that question.
You can ask it.
Tough.
I have no idea what's going to come out of my mouth, but
yeah.
I'm going to say Abraham Lincoln.
Okay, Abraham Lincoln. Good choice. Would you ever consider hosting Jeopardy? Gaetano wants to know.
Man, I've gotten maybe 1,000. I've seen 1,000 questions at least about Jeopardy. And I hosted a game show years ago called No Relation. It was on Fox. We did 40 episodes of the thing, and I liked it. I like it's a very efficient way to work. And if I could continue doing what I'm doing now and host Jeopardy the way we used to host that show, which would mean really going to LA twice a week.
Yeah, a couple of days.
You shoot 10 episodes over, 2 days or sometimes one day. You can get a lot done. I might, but nobody's asked.
That's interesting too, because you're like I think you're a well-read person, you know your stuff, you're interested in things. I feel like that would be a good fit for you.
Well, we've been talking about game shows and what would a game show look like that I was hosting, and it would be trivia based. It would probably take place in a barn or, a factory floor, or maybe, movable sets that all looked like work. I think that would be fun. I
Yeah.
don't know, that it would make sense for me to put on a suit and tie and stand right where Alex Trebek used to stand and say potent potables for 400. You
Right.
hate you don't want to imitate the last thing. And he left, some pretty big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
If I could do it the way I wanted to do it, then definitely. But if they wanted somebody just to replace Alex and keep everything else the same, I don't think so.
Ed wants to know, what brand of scotch, bourbon, or cigars do you like?
Interesting. I'm currently flirting with doing a line of bourbon myself. I'm a big fan of bourbon, and
Creating a
I'm
line.
creating a line. Yeah, yeah. I'm really, really close. I'm going to decide this week probably. But uh, as far as what's out there, up in my cabinet right now, I have Blanton's. Blanton's has a little horse on the top, Kentucky bourbon. I also like Basil Hayden. I also like Bullet. I just realized I'm attracted to bees suddenly. Um, Scotch I used to love, but I haven't had it in a few years. I think the peatiness of it. I went through a peaty stage, and now I'm more about the bourbons and the gin. When it gets warm outside, a good gin and tonic, preferably Plymouth gin, which just happened to be the favorite of. Have you been paying attention, Karen?
This is a theme today. So yes, for anybody tuning into Just the Fan Q&A, there's much more about the theme in that book in the long interview. Who inspires you? Karen wants to know, which is similar to Lori's question, who do you look up to? I like that question.
Well, I don't really look up to people that I don't know. And the people that I know best, you've never heard of. So,
But you can say them. That's fine.
Oh,
But tell me who they are.
well, I look up to my mother immensely. I'm a unapologetic mama's boy. Um, best-selling author at 80.
Yeah.
Who does that? She was and is incredible. But what was the other one? Oh, who impresses me?
She's great too. I watched you on that video. You posted a video, a Zoom call of you were talking to your parents. It was really cute about, well, there was some marijuana stuff in there.
Oh yeah, right. God, that thing went crazy. Yeah.
I'm forgetting what was at the beginning, and that was the end of the conversation. But yeah, I mean, you can tell, you can see your mom and you, a special relationship, and you were pretty heavily influenced by her, I imagine.
I was. I mean, certainly, I've mentioned a few. Fred King, Dick Clark, also changed the trajectory of my life during that game show. I was just telling you
Personally?
about it. Yeah, yeah. He gave me a bit of advice. Real simple advice. He didn't say much. He was going to host the show, but he had just started his production company, so they hired me instead. And on the first episode, I walked out on the stage and I said, "Hi everybody, I'm Mike Rowe. This is no relation." And I went into the patter, and he came up later. He said, "Look, Ed, you're natural. I like everything you're doing, but one thing, you walked out and you said, 'Hi everybody.'" He said, "I get why you said that. You're a broadcaster and we're talking to millions of people, but that's not how they see you. You're talking to them. And when you say everybody, you wreck that. Just say hi." I'm like, of course. Of course. Why wouldn't I just say hi? So when you start thinking about that, it changes the way you interact with a group, with an individual, and certainly on TV.
That's also something that probably stayed with you. Got that early-ish, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
that you brought with you.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So you really take in these nuggets that people give you.
I try to,
Yeah.
but you never know when you're getting a nugget. You only really know it. Some exceptions, but for the most part, it's very rare when something happens in your life and you go, "Wow, that's it, game changer." It's like every time I've really truly come to a significant fork in the road, I'm looking back at it and I'm
Yeah,
realizing, oh, that was the time when blah, 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 blah.
totally. Of course. And that's hindsight is not only 2020, but the insights come later. But then, boy, and I wonder if Dick Clark knew that you took that with you in such a way. I don't think they realize it when they give you a nugget. They don't necessarily know that, decades later, even you could be living your life, part of it based on that nugget. And it's kind of a shame. Like, too bad he didn't know. Or did you tell him at some point?
No, we weren't really close after that, but it's so true what you just said. The great privilege for me today at this point in my career is that I do hear back from people, many people that I've never met, some who have gotten a scholarship through my foundation, and some who were just fans of the show and heard me say something on a TV show and took it to heart, like
Yeah.
really took it to heart. And, I get letters all the time from people who tell me about a specific episode of Dirty Jobs that fundamentally changed their life. I meet people. I met a kid in the airport the other day. A kid, he was 24 years old, but he was telling me he used to watch my show when he was 10. I'm like, oh my God. And he said, you did an episode with a steel worker that put me on the path that I'm on today. Worked as an iron worker for 5 years and then joined the Marines.
Yeah. So you are lucky because you do get to hear those things.
Giving advice is like throwing a baseball. Once it leaves your hand, it's bye.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Best and worst advice that you got from your father. That's from Tim.
Wow. I mean, so much great stuff from my dad. I think, well, we talked about it earlier. It's not really advice, but the way that he made it clear that his wife was more important than me, that was a big deal. And like we said, you don't always recognize the big deals when they happen, but looking back, that was huge. It's also tough to beat the word duck, which he advised me to do one day in the backyard. There were some people over and we're playing horseshoes. And I heard my father yell, duck. I didn't know who he was talking to, but because I recognized the voice and because he used such a crisp, well-modulated baritone, and because he infused it with a touch of urgency, I didn't question it. I simply ducked. And the horseshoe that whizzed right over my head hit my friend, Chuddy, knocked him unconscious. He's okay. But,
so, he didn't hear the same, listen to the same advice from that voice.
It's interesting. He heard it. He heard the voice.
Yeah.
But, I took my father's advice at that moment in time, not because it was excellent, although it was. I took it because I recognized the voice as a trusted source.
What's another good lesson that you figured out about life?
Don't confuse efficiency with effectiveness. We're in love with efficiency right now. Everything is about wringing every last dime out of every single thing. But efficiency, if you take it to its logical conclusion, is the province of robots. Effectiveness, you can be an efficient therapist or you can be an effective therapist.
Sure.
An efficient therapist, right, takes in more money than she spends, runs a tight ship, right, has everything's buttoned up, everything's ordered. But do you actually do any good?
No.
Right. So it's easy to confuse efficiency and effectiveness. And I could do a whole hour on the examples from Dirty Jobs. A lot of lessons around that. Teamwork. Teamwork is highly overrated. It has its place, obviously, but like any of those other bromides or successories, teamwork is it's one side of a coin. The other side is individualism. Whatever team just won the World Series, good for them. But every single individual on that team gets paid a different salary because it's not really just about the team. So there's a great rumination on teamwork, passion, efficiency, effectiveness, innovation. Innovation is another one of those companies are in love with it. Up here in Silicon Valley, every single company wants to brand themselves as a great innovator. Nobody, on the other hand, wants to brand themselves as a great imitator, because imitation, as we discussed before, is derivation, and we really diminish an old idea that's really just been repurposed. But the truth is, if you repurpose it well, if you can imitate in the exact right way, well, then you too are part of another coin. Innovation on one side, imitation on the other. The innovation that allowed this thing to come into being, this smartphone, is incredible. And it's the thing that Apple wants to talk about more than anything else. All the innovation that went into this thing. But it was the imitation that allowed billions of them to be made and shipped and distributed and so forth. And if you don't have that, then you just have the one thing, and that's called a prototype. What's more important, the innovation that allows the vaccine to prevent corona, or our ability to imitate the business of getting it into everybody's arm?
Sure. I do think it's very interesting how you do seem to come up very readily with these. I know you said that you're not into navel gazing and all that. Maybe that's more internal, personal, or whatever, but you really are like a philosophical, analytical person, I think, who does reflect quite a bit and then figure things out or theorize about a lot. Yeah.
Who was it? Was it Kierkegaard, The Unexamined Life? I mean, you can't be so inward that you really tip into full-on self-absorption.
Sure.
But man, it's the most tiresome people I know are the ones who never subjected themselves to any internal rigor.
No question. The most interesting people to talk to, at least, are the ones who have. Absolutely.
If you look, there's this whole level of, getting to know you, what do you like? If you can tell me who you are and what's important to you, that's all interesting. Nothing gets fascinating though, until you tell me why. For a fake host who's really a guest or an avatar trying to get through a dirty job, yeah, I got to know what you're doing. That's the job. I need to know who you are. That's the biographical part of the show. But if I can figure out why you're doing this in a way that doesn't come out as a lecture, but just through our own interaction, then, you might be offering something that's actually nourishing to a viewer.
Fully, exactly what I'm after. Did we get to the why today, do you think?
Hun, you started with the why. You came right out of the gate with the what.
There is more with Mike. Make sure you're subscribed. Tap that notifications bell. If you want to take a second to smash that like button, amazing. I'd love it. If you're interested, I'd love to send you a really famous mug. Do you have too many mugs and junk in your place?
I got this thing that I got from a Murray McMurray, a chicken hatchery, about 20 years ago. I'd be happy to break in something new.
Okay, so I will have one sent over your way. Would you like a really famous mug? You can get one. Just click on this card right up here or in the description down below. I put an easy link where you can get one. If you like this talk with Mike, I think you will love my talk with Jeremy Wade. Yes, Jeremy Wade of River Monsters. I put a link right up here, so you can just tap on that, or you can click on the link in the description below. I put one there too.